Yo, what is going on, guys? My name is Andrew Aurora, and I help artists and producers bring their creative vision to life through mixing and mastering. And today I'm going to be going over the ultimate beginner's guide to mixing and mastering EDM music. And honestly, this could really apply to any genre, but I'm using an EDM song today. And if you enjoy this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button as I put out a video like this every single week, and hit that notifications bell so that way you never miss a video. Now let's jump right in. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to jump right into the most important part about mixing, and that is balance. Basically, everything with mixing boils down to balance, whether that's volume balance, frequency balance, dynamic balance, spatial balance. Basically, the definition of mixing is balance, and knowing how to use your tools where you can carve out a space for each individual element where they can all work together to make one cohesive sound is literally the game of mixing. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on volume balance, because that is the fundamental. And so what I like to do with volume balance is focus on gain staging. So right now all we have is a session where I have no plugins, I have no routing, I have no nothing. And normally how I like to do gain staging is I like to use clip gain on the individual track, and my goal with clip gain is to have a visual of how loud the track is, so that way when I actually get a template set up and I have all my routing and everything, I can visually adjust the volume here to where I know it's going to hit my tracks or hit my plugins, hit my routing, hit everything the way that I want it to, so that way it almost every single time I have my gain staging perfect when I have a template set up. Now I don't have all that right now, but my goal is to have about 25% of space up top and 25% of space below the waveform, and have the waveform covering around 50%. So this is a little harder to tell with a stereo track, but if I did it in a mono track, it would be very easy to tell. So let me just duplicate this real quick, or make a mono track out of it. So my goal would be to have around 25% space up here, 25% space down here, and around 50% of the space being taken up with this. So 50-50 basically. And my goal is to hit around -18 here on the master, so that way I have plenty of headroom, and I can add all my stereo processing later that will bring up the volume. Now this isn't set in stone rules. You don't have to do 25%, but this is how I like to do it, and this is what I do personally for myself. Now you may have seen I added a limiter here, and I've got a little bit of pre-gain turned down on my master, and the reason for that is because before I did this video I made sure that the volumes were right so I didn't blow your guys' head off. So what I do is I just come in here, I'm going to undo what I just did with the making the mono tracks, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to try to visually adjust all these to where they are at least pretty close to where I want them to be. So the kick looks pretty good, but now we are going to bring up this because it's a little too low. We're going to bring up the snap just a little bit. It looks like it's a little too low. The bass is definitely a little too low. Let's see. We're going to bring up the bass hook here a little bit. We got the leads there a little too low. And this doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to get it, pretty close. And if you need to adjust it later, that's fine. The only goal here really is to have them pretty ballpark, so that way that they will be hitting everything the way you want. So let's just bring this up a little bit. That's a little too hot. This is definitely too hot. That's pretty good. That's close. That's definitely too hot. That's a little too low. That's also a little bit too low. And this is a little too hot. And now we should be pretty close. So like I said, I checked this right before I started this video, so that way I wouldn't blow your guys' head off with too much volume. So let me just bypass this limiter. Oh, not open it, just bypass it. And you can see we're hitting around -18. That was the goal here. And what I did is I used the pre-gain on the master here to bring it down, so that way it would hit -18 with all these tracks at this clip gain level. And then I just used the limiter to turn it back up so you guys could actually hear it. This isn't actually limiting anything. So that is a very basic gain structure, gain staging process for getting your volumes. Now, real quick, if you're enjoying this video, I wanted to mention my free resource, the 12 things that you need to be a beast at mixing and mastering. I put this free resource together because as a beginner, there are a lot of things that you can get distracted by that are going to make you waste a bunch of time, and I wanted you guys to have a very clear guide on what I personally felt are the 12 most important things for you to focus on as a beginner, so that way you can start mixing and mastering ASAP. And on top of that, I included some of my favorite resources within this resource to help you build a strong foundation for yourself on your mixing and mastering journey. If you want to pick that up, there's a link in the description for you to pick it up. And of course, if you'd like to have your music mixed and mastered by me, then you can apply to work with me and even potentially have your music featured on this channel. And if you'd like to do that, there's also a link in the description for that as well. Now on to the rest of the video. Now we're going to move on to the next step, which is adjusting our levels now that we've gotten the actual like gain staging part down. We're going to go through and balance everything volume wise around each other. And we're going to really start with the foundation, which with EDM is normally the kick drum. So we're going to build around the kick drum first. So let's start off with, let's start off, we got the kick, let's start building around the kick. Snare needs to come up. Snare needs to come up a little bit. That clap can come up a little bit. Actually, I don't think it needs to come up. Bring the snap up just a little bit. I think the hats are okay for now. I think the bass could come down a little bit. Bring all those down just a little bit. The leads can definitely come down. The vocal definitely needs to come up some. This can actually clip gain up some more. Need to bump up the vocals a little bit. Swell could come down a little bit. And let's see. Let's get some other stuff balanced in here. I think that sub drop could come down a little bit. Snare roll can come down a little bit. Cool, so that is pretty much a rough volume balance. Again, this is like an exercise. You just go in, get the clip gain right, get the volume gain staging right, and then go through and adjust your volumes and just purely focus on mixing with volume, not with plugins, not with anything else. Just purely focus on keeping it this simple, assuming that you're a beginner and you're trying to get your foundation established. Start by doing this. Don't worry about plugins, routing, or anything complicated. Just worry about getting your gain staging right and worry about getting your volume balance right. And now we're going to move on to the next important thing, which is EQ. Cool, so now that we have everything pretty much roughly volume balanced and gain staged the way that we want it to, the next thing I'm going to focus on is an EQ exercise. So no matter what track you're working on, this is going to be a very powerful exercise to help you start refining your ear. So what I'm going to do is I have a stock EQ on every single track in Cubase that just comes with Cubase. And I'm going to only give myself 15 seconds to EQ each individual track, and that's what I want you to do too. And the reason for this is because the quicker that you can hear something, identify what's wrong with it, and EQ it and move on, the better, because your ears start to play tricks on you the longer that you mess with something. And if you don't believe me, then have you ever sat here and messed with a plugin where, it was muted and you started adjusting it and then you thought, oh, wow, it sounds so much better, and it was actually off the whole time? Or if you've ever stood up and taken a 15-minute break and come back and you hear things that you didn't hear before, well, the thing is the more you listen to something, the more your ears start to play tricks on you, and you want to be able to hear something and identify ASAP what needs to be changed. Now, you might be saying to yourself, like, Andrew, I don't even know what to listen for. And that's completely okay. That's the whole point of this exercise. It doesn't have to sound great after you EQ it. I just want you to hear something and immediately try to identify what needs to be changed in it, and only give yourself roughly about 15 seconds, and that's exactly what I'm going to do when I do this exercise. Now, it's okay to use solo. I would, if you are going to EQ in solo, I would check everything. I would check it next to everything. But let's just breeze through this as quickly as possible and go through and EQ each individual element. We'll start with the kick. I immediately hear that I don't like that sound in the kick, and all these kicks sound pretty similar, so it's probably going to be about the same. I'm trying to hitting the wrong button. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut the low end out of that snare, because it's going to get in the way of my kick, and I want to give it some more body. And I want to EQ out some of that harshness. Maybe a little less of that low. Now let's check it. There, now I can hear that snare a little bit more. Let's move on to the reverse snare. Cut those lows out, not going to need them. All right, let's go to the snare. Same thing, going to cut some lows. Going to boost that. There, now that snare just hits harder. You can hear it. All right, on to the next one. Those lows will get in the way of the kick and the bass later, so I'm going to cut those out. Same with that. I hear a little bit of some harshness up top. Bring that out, before and after. Better. Won't need those lows. Doesn't really need much else. The hi-hats don't really need anything. I did a lot of the, mixing kind of in the production stage on this song. That sounds good. I don't think it needs anything. I think that could benefit from some air on top. All right, let's move on to the next element. I think some air will make that sound a little better. Sounds all right. Move on to the leads now. Take out a little bit of harshness. We're on the other lead now. All right. Whoops. Not trying to do that. A little bit of harshness, take that out. And I don't think most of these are really going to need a lot of EQ, to be honest with you. Yeah, that doesn't need EQ. That's not going to need EQ. That's not going to need EQ. Nah. That might need... Let me see. Cut some lows out. Also cut some lows out of that gasp, because again, that stuff's just going to get in our way later. Let's pull this back. Same with that. Need some lows cut out of it. That doesn't really need anything. That doesn't need much of anything. That might need some lows cut out of it. Let's check. Yeah, let's cut some lows. I'm going to leave the lows in that. And then let's go down here to the vocals. That was a little harsh on top. Wanted to get rid of that. Let's go to the busy section on these vocals. Cut some of those lows. Some of that harshness out. That sounds quite a bit brighter. Alright. That's a little too much. A little too much too. So this harsh frequencies out of there. All right. Some of that weird mid-range out. Some of these lows out. Comes some of that harshness out. Sounds better already. Some of that harshness out. I think that sounds okay. And then I don't think I'll really need much on these last ones. Nope, that's pretty much it. Okay, cool. So that is a quick EQ exercise. Now, in your DAW, you should have the ability to bypass all the EQs if you need to and see what it sounds like before and after. And that's exactly what I'm going to do real quick here. So it's definitely subtle, but again, I did a lot of the, processing and stuff on the way in with this song, but with most songs that you're going to be working on, it's not going to be that subtle if you do this challenge. But continue to do this challenge over and over again and continue to do this to refine your hearing and help you really identify things quickly. And again, if you don't really know what to listen for right now, that is totally fine. Just keep practicing. I would recommend doing these exercises at least maybe, for 30 minutes per day, maybe an hour per day until you really get the foundation laid down and you start really hearing, what you're trying to hear and your hearing starts to get more refined. But from here, we're going to move on to creating some routing. So now that we've got the EQ exercise done, we're going to talk about routing. And I've done some routing off screen so that way you guys didn't have to watch me create buses and whatnot. And I'll just go over real quick what I did. I created a kick bus that all my kicks are routed to. I created a snare bus that all my snares, but also my claps and my snaps are routed to, just because personally I like to have my claps and my snaps in my snare bus. It's just something I do. Hi-hats, I created a cymbal bus for them. The chords and the bass, I actually created one bus for. And the leads, I got a lead bus for. And then all this other stuff I call extras, I created an extras bus for. And then we've got a vocals bus down here that all the vocals are routed to. And you're free to do routing however you want, but I wanted to keep this routing super simple, for new people, so that way they didn't have to worry about some really complex routing. All I have is a few buses. There's nothing on them right now. As you can see, they're completely open. And I just use this so that way I have got the control over like all these elements with these buses and have everything really organized. On top of that, I also created two reverbs up here. I created a session verb and a percussion verb, because what we're going to do here in a minute is I'm going to do a rough mix of this song using pretty much all stock plugins and keeping everything super simple, just because I didn't want to overcomplicate it for beginners. Now, the reverb I'm using here is the only plugin that is not stock, and the only reason I'm doing that is because I didn't want this video to take forever doing a bunch of adjustments on a reverb. I just use the exact same ones I used on this session. And yeah, pretty much I'm just going to dive into the mixing stage. I also set up some sends on my individual channels for these reverbs, and that's literally all I've done. I've kept it super simple. So let's move on now to the real quick rough mix and master of this session. Now that we've got the routing done, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very rough mix and master of this song. Now, this isn't going to be some in-depth mixing and mastering tutorial, but what this is going to be is just a very simple, quick mixing and mastering guide, so that way you guys have a foundation that you can work off of. The goal of this video was not to teach you guys like advanced stuff, it was to teach you guys some stuff to help you get started. So, you know, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go through a quick rough mix and a quick rough master with some very simple things that you can do as a beginner to mix and master your music and eventually start adding to it and learn more advanced stuff. So let's jump right in. And on top of that, I didn't want to, you know, create a really long video. I want to keep this video kind of reasonable in length. So let's just jump right in and do a quick mix and master of this song. I know those two kicks sound almost identical, but I'm pretty sure I remember doing a slightly different EQ on one of them than the other, but maybe they are just duplicates. Let's see. I feel like this kick is a little bit too loud, so let's bring this down just a little bit. And this kick, it needs to come up just a little bit. And also, I'm not really worried about if the signal is that hot on the kick track. It really doesn't bother me. I thought maybe some people might, you know, be looking at that and be like, aren't you worried about it clipping? No, because I forget what it is, but there's something in Cubase that kind of doesn't allow it to clip or actually get digital distortion if it hits right there. I don't remember what it is. It's kind of a nerdy thing. I can't remember, but I remember one of my favorite engineers who uses Cubase talking about it. So I'm not too worried about if it goes into the orange or the red or whatever. All right, so now I want to increase the snare volume just a little bit, and this is going to increase everything. Actually, hold on. Instead of doing that, I'm actually going to use clip gain on this just to bring up the volume just a touch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into here and I'm going to use this percussion verb that I mentioned earlier, and we are going to send some reverb, or send this to some reverb. That way we get a little bit of ambience. Actually, I think we might even need to go heavier on that reverb. Let's see. Yeah, let's do a little heavier on the reverb. That sounds good to me. And let's see about these claps, or actually, let's check the snare roll. Feel like that can come up again. See, that's very dry. That definitely needs some reverb. Yeah, snap definitely needs some reverb. Much better. Now this could use some reverb, and we've got this also going to the percussion verb. I actually think I may have had this going to the session verb instead of the percussion verb. Aside from that weird... Yeah, let's just send that to the percussion verb because it will definitely sound better that way than on the session verb. So let's turn that off. I actually feel like it just needs a little bit more reverb. Let's just combine it with some RoomWorks. Sometimes 2 reverb sounds good. Getting closer. So now what I'm going to do, I know this, add some ambience to those chords. I'm actually not going to put any reverb on the bass because that sounds weird. All right. All right. That needed a little bit more volume. That needed a little more volume. Just checking my extras now. Okay, this definitely needs some reverb. All right, that sounds good. thought it could use a little bit more air on top. What I'm doing here is checking to see if these kicks are too much, if they need to be brought down in volume when they have that build up. I personally don't think so. So this song is, I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to get a perfect mix here, but I think it sounds pretty decent. And now I just want to add some stuff to the master chain. And I've added a couple things here. You see I've got 2 limiters. And that was because before I did this, I wanted to check and make sure, you know, my volumes were good. And so what I did is I just had a limiter that has a slightly different volume than the limiter I've been using because I had a bump in volume from a compressor and a soft clipper. So let's start with the first thing I have on here, and that's just an EQ, standard stock EQ. Like I said, pretty much using just stock stuff. And that is, you know, in case I need to make any EQ changes, just a regular little compressor that I dialed in beforehand. I mean, just a rough dial in just to make sure I wasn't compressing too much. And a soft clipper because clipping into a limiter sounds really good. And this is a very simple mastering chain. Again, it's not very complex. It's all stock stuff. And I just wanted to, you know, give you guys something to start with. Basically, if I was going to master something, I would at least have an EQ, a compressor, a clipper, and a limiter, if nothing else, on my mastering chain. So yeah, let's just start, you know, and do a quick little rough master. We're just going to start with the EQ, see if the whole song needs anything. And we're going to go to the busiest part of the song to see, you know, what changes might need to be made. EQ a little bit of harshness out of there. Sorry if that was loud. I didn't mean to blow your ears out. This is kind of a hard EQ to work with because it's like, it's so fine and I'm trying to make small movements, but there's huge jumps in the, there's huge jumps when I move it even a little bit. I don't know if there's a way to change it on that or change it on here. I've never used this EQ before, but I just boosted a little bit of mid-range, try to make the song feel a little more full, trying to boost a little top in, cut some harshness out. The thing with mastering is that you want to be kind of subtle. You don't want to do like huge moves unless it really is necessary. You're not trying to butcher a song. Usually when you have it good in the mix stage, you're just trying to add an extra little bit of flavor and, you know, make it sound good across all platforms. But again, this isn't like a professional master. This is just a quick little master. That's subtle, but I like it. Let's try the compressor now. That boosted the volume just a little bit. I think it has some auto gain on it. And I'm just trying to tap this. I'm just trying to tap this compressor just a little bit. That was the wrong knob. That's not the threshold knob. That's the ratio knob. My bad. Now there's a very important thing to notice when I just did that. When I took the release down, it actually kind of unglued the song entirely. Listen to that. You don't want a super long release because then it'll hold the mix down and kind of get rid of all the movement, but you also don't want a super quick release or the song might not sound glued. I mean, every song's different, but with this song, super quick release made it sound not glued. I think that sounds okay. We can go from there. And now I got a little bit of a soft clipper here. And this is probably going to make the song a little bit more loud, so, just warning you, prepare your ears. Cool. So what the clipper did is it basically brought the whole mix more in my face and in your face and everybody's face. But yeah, pretty much that's just a very simple mastering chain, and we were able to make the song sound quite a bit better just with a very, very minor changes. So that's pretty much a rough master and a rough mix of this song. I think that's a good point to end the video before this video takes too long. Let me know what you guys like best. Let me know if this helped you guys out any or any questions you might have. Feel free to comment on the video and let me know. And of course, if you need any mixing and mastering services, you can always reach out to me over on my website. I have all my information over there. You can check out my portfolio and you can fill out an application to work with me, and I will get in touch with you. So I will see you guys next week. Peace out.